Welcome to the Political Matrix News. Politics, people, local, regional, national news. Political Matrix News keeps you informed. We have the sources, we have the truth from inside the Political Matrix.
Welcome back. This is Greg Fink here in Gainesville, Florida with Political Matrix News. And I'm joined tonight by Tiffany Houston and Jonathan Cole. Next segment we're going to be talking about is the Alabama election. And as if there's any data out of Alabama, we're going to find it. It looks like they had an election, this special election, which turned a Republican seat that has been a Republican seat for, I think, over 40 or 50 years into a Democrat seat on this special election. And so that being said, let's go ahead and go to Tiffany first and get her opinion on it.
Okay. You know, what I think we're seeing here is when
Tragedy.
Republicans go too far, and they have on this issue of abortion, Democrats can win, even in the most
Specifically, what do they get too far on?
Overturning Roe v. Wade.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And even though that might have been almost 2 years ago, that's still something that is very much on the forefront and center of people's minds.
In Alabama, what's the big issue in Alabama? Is it with the abortion?
So it's a Democrat who ran on the platform of she's pro-choice and was big on IVF, you know, as you remember,
right?
That how, you know, IVF is kind of, it's on pause in a lot of places.
I don't understand why that's a political football at all that the Republicans wanted to take on. I mean, IVF is, you know, a very important thing to have access to.
Absolutely. And, you know, a recent Fox News poll, it just, it demonstrates that a majority of Americans believe abortion should be legal most of the time. This was just done, I believe, March 2nd or March 22nd to the 25th.
Really?
And it's showing that it's backing up conclusions that pro-choice candidates have showcased since the overturning of Roe v. Wade in the past year and a half.
How when that's on the
ballot, we'll vote for it.
So now liberals are adopting Fox News polls. Okay, I mean,
it's kind of like if it's bad with Fox News, it must really be bad.
No, the whole issue. I mean, I've done a lot of polling and everything else. I mean, and we have seen a lot of polling that we've actually done in Northwest Florida, where the people were gearing a lot more lately, especially the last 5 or 6 years, toward pro-choice. However, a mannerism of which, you know, whether or not to allow their child to do it without their permission and all the different variables that go along with a very complicated issue of it not being just really simple pro-choice, but whether or not a child can do it without a parent's permission or so on and so forth, and all the different variables that, you know, go along with it, those are still very conservative. And so I do think, and the polling that we have done with the listener group, and but I do know that, yes, I mean, there is a trend going where people will think, you know, I think the whole idea, the concept is that get government out of my backyard, get government out of our house, which is a conservative mentality, actually. Mm-hmm. And so I do think, you know, that way, I do think that, you know, you see the people trending more in a libertarian or anti-government, you know, being involved in their lifestyle, you know, agenda.
Yeah. I think this time, in the case of Alabama, that it's an object of where not just IVF was an overreach, but it's also, like I was talking about the other day, with the backlash for the DEI, you know, disbanding of DEI programs on state colleges impacting our college football programs. When they pander to the base, sometimes there's consequences, and it was kind of like IVF fell into a nook inside abortion. And I heard the rationale was that a fertilized egg could be thrown away, and that's abortion. But, you know, that's not the case. Two things it did was, one, you're telling a couple that can't have children any other way that now you can't have children. And
other way.
The supposition all along that life begins at conception gets dealt a blow, because what happens with an egg once it's fertilized? It's frozen. You can't freeze a human, they die. But I have friends that still have a fertilized egg in Jacksonville that's over 20 years old.
Right.
And if they were capable, they could still use it. So I think maybe the sensibility in Alabama, which led to a 30% flip, was the fact that, gee, our own people are intruding in our lives with big government.
Isn't that a very interesting take, though? I mean, we have the Democrats winning in a small government effort against a Republicans who are being perceived as being big
Depends on the
government.
topic. That's always been the thing is,
Well, it seems like this might have been a single issue campaign, is what you're trying to say.
oh no, it's going to transit. It's still related to the issue on abortion, because at the moment, any election that's happened since Dobbs, that had abortion as an issue, went to the Democrats. And we're not just talking California, Michigan. It happened in Ohio, and it happened in
Kansas.
Kansas.
Yeah.
Uh, so every choice or pro life initiative has failed, and failed miserably. During research today, I saw where some think tanks and some PACs for pro life have actually asked to take public initiative uh, down. Like, if we're going to do this, let's just let the legislature do it. Let's don't put it in the polls, in other words, because
Right.
we're getting beat.
Well, being a pro-lifer as I am, I will just say that the messaging of the pro-life movement has, it's not as strong as it. I mean, it's not as
Yeah,
concise, and it's not as poignant as it needs to be. I mean, in my opinion, I think the biggest issue here is, I mean, we're talking, from what I see, from a lot of personal experience with a lot of people who, in my inner circle, is that, you have a lot of teenagers who are getting pregnant, and a lot of them really don't know exactly, how to handle the situation, and nor are they mature enough to handle it on their own. And so I do think that the idea that allowing a parent or encouraging a parent to be involved in their teenager's life and everything else, no matter how hard or painful it might be at the very beginning of the situation,
yeah.
is very important, and it's a very important step to take. That
But
being
I
said,
don't.
I mean, as far as the issue goes, I myself, I don't really get involved in, I really don't want to be involved in the choice of that whatsoever. I do think it's a very important choice, a very important step of life for the person who's pregnant to communicate with a person who, is their partner and their family members as well, as far as, raising a child. But I mean, I never want to be in a situation, nor do I ever want anybody I know to be in a situation where they have to choose life, taking a child's life or not. And it's a horrible situation to be in. And so I'm never going to pretend to be like that. But that being said, the baby does have should have a chance to live,
Yeah, that's. But I mean, there's a lot of
But
people. There was people on the bridge in Maryland yesterday that should have had a chance to live
yeah,
too.
I know,
So,
and they should as well.
life is out of our hands a lot of times.
Exactly.
But I think it's
But
more than that. It's
But it's
just
very
that.
complicated. I mean, I think everybody oversimplifies all these issues so
Oh,
well.
definitely. That's what I'm saying. Is the whole reason the IVF became an issue is because it just kind of pigeonholed into
Exactly.
the legislation in Alabama, and then they're left with no choice. Then actually, the legislature in Alabama did go back and create specific
I can't
protections for
see how
IVF.
anybody
But
would say that a family wanting to have a baby
yeah,
during a non normal, or not normal, but a non sexual manner, by like freezing an egg and
yeah.
sperm and everything else, doing it in that type of scientific manner, because that's the only way they can do it, and or they can conceive, or they can have a child. I can't see how anybody would be against that. And
Well, what they brought up was, what
I
do
mean,
you
have
do
all
with
these movies about
do
human
with the
trafficking and kidnapping and everything else, but
what do you do
the
with the
movie.
eggs, this fertilized eggs that aren't used. That's what the issue was about. In other words, tossing fertilized eggs is abortion. That's where the reasoning came from.
Right.
Because life begins at conception, according to them.
Yeah.
So that's
Everything's conceived. I mean, corn, produce, farm animals, everything starts at conception.
right. Well, but it's like my friends.
Everything we eat.
They fertilized 3 eggs. They used 2 of them. They have 2 children that had they're I think 20 and 17 now. But there's 1 egg left. But after the last birth, they told her you can't have another child. It nearly killed her. So there's this egg sitting in Jacksonville. What do you do with it? So, but that's getting into the issues themselves. But the discussion was more like the ramifications of overreaching.
So that's the reason why the Alabama seat got flipped.
Well, there's another reason too, and I was going to get into that. How much time I have left in this segment?
Go ahead.
Okay, so the difference maker, and I'm going to go back again to the overreaching and the ramifications of rash decisions. There's a trend in special elections of Democrats flipping Republican seats around the country. Happened not too far from you in Florida District 35 couple months ago. And that issue is in direct relation to the anti-woke, anti-transgender, anti-LGBTQ issue. So I did the math in that election. I looked at the data. Democrats did their usual thing and didn't hardly show up. Independents are really what flipped that seat.
Yes. The MPAs are growing.
And they voted almost more than 2-1 against the Republican because they were pro DeSantis. Independents were very strong in this election 2 days ago.
So the MPA, and that's one thing people need to look at. I mean, that's where RFK Jr. comes in, and Jill Stein. We'll be talking about that in the next segment, the last segment. But the MPA movement is going to be big.
Okay.
It's going to be very big.
Well, let's go ahead and take that break. When we get back, I want to read a quote from a known politician who's usually respected.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to take a real quick.
It relates very quickly to this, but it's going to relate to RFK and Stein, too.
Okay, great. Well, we're going to take a break here real quick, guys, and we'll be right back. We are the Political Matrix News broadcast, and so please stay tuned.